This is the Viltrox 50mm F1.8 FE for Sony full frame. It is a budget lens from Viltrox, who already have a 24, which I loved, and an 85, two versions of the 85. So now they have a 50 as well, coming in at $379, which is a little bit more than what Sony charges for their nifty 50. So do you get anything for paying a little bit more for a third-party off-brand lens compared to the Sony one? Well, obviously it's quite a bit newer, so I'm hoping the autofocus is maybe good. But we'll see. We're going to swap this lens out for the 24 I'm using right now and shoot the rest of this video hopefully with this lens just to kind of see how it handles things. Now you do get a declicked aperture ring on here, which is kind of strange. So because it's declicked, it means it doesn't click at all, and there is no switch on it to make it clicky either. You do, however, have a little A there which puts it into auto mode, which means you can then control it on the camera, opposed to when it's not in that and you can only control the aperture directly on the lens. Build quality is exactly what you've come to expect with Viltrox if you have any of their previous lenses. This is pretty much just like that. It's mostly made of metal. The lens hood is plastic, and on the back there is no weather sealing, there is no gasket in there. Come on, there you go. However, there is a little USB-C port, which means that you're likely going to be able to update this in the future with firmware, and normally Viltrox is pretty good at allowing us to do that. Right, let's swap over to this lens on the camera now and see how the autofocus is, how the minimum focus distance is, because on the front it actually says minimum focus distance is 0.55 meters or 1.8 feet. That's pretty big, so let's swap it over and see how it handles. Right, now we're on with the 50mm f1.8 at f1.8. Camera's on a tripod, so this is exactly the same shot as before, just with a 50 instead of a 24, so you can see how you get that little bit of a different field of view because we're much closer at 50. 50 is used for a huge variety of things. I'm not going to go over everything that it's used for. It's a very commonly used focal length, a nifty 50, typically a good first prime lens a lot of people get, and they're cheap, like this one, which is $379 too. Gives you a nice separation from your background there. If I jump out of frame, and then jump back in, you can see how the background just blurs out here nicely at f1.8. Right, minimum focus. Let's test it. I have to put that in my pouch. I've got nowhere else to put it now. So it says on the front here that it is 0.55 meters, 1.8 feet. So yeah, it doesn't work close. So that to me looks like it's kind of in focus there, and that would be roughly around that. But that is quite far. So it's probably in line with like the 55 f1.8. So you got to be pretty far from the lens to get things in focus with this. Right, autofocus. So I have both settings set in the middle, subject sensitivity and transition speed. How's it handle? It does look quite slow. I mean, not bad, not bad. I've seen worse. Come on. Is that even focused? It's far enough away. It's definitely slow. It's not the best, by all means. Not the best. Is it usable? Yeah, for sure it is. Especially if you're on a budget, but you're not getting like Sony quality GM autofocus speed. I want to give the autofocus one more chance, an opportunity here at f2.8 to redeem itself. So let's see. You know what? It actually does look a little bit quicker. I mean, this is just on the screen. Maybe when I get back to look at my computer, it'll be different, but maybe not. Kind of hard to tell. You'll be able to tell at this point better than I know. Let's stop with the video tests and go do some photos. Just take some photos and see how they look. Right, we're actually back in the studio now. I figured this was probably a better way to demonstrate all of the photos, and we're going to pixel peep in the corners and that kind of thing. But I'm actually shooting on the lens right now for this talking head segment as well, just so you can kind of see how it looks for this kind of thing. So I am about, I don't know, 5 feet from the lens. It's at f1.8, and this is in S-Log3 graded with the Phantom LUTs, which you can get 15% off right now. I'll put a link down below. We've got Lightroom open here, and I just want to show you how this lens differs at different apertures. This is something I noticed. We'll go over this, and then as you can see here, I've got a bunch of photos to go through. It's just some like self-portraits and a few other things about this lens as well. But overall opinions of it, for 370 bucks, it's genuinely not a bad lens. Like, it's a pretty solid buy for that cost for someone on a budget. For maybe your first prime lens instead of one of the older, like Sony 50 F1.8 nifty 50s. So this shot right here, now these have all been corrected with the lens corrections built into Lightroom. It does have it in there already for the Viltrox 50mm F1.8 FE. And I've applied that to all of them with just some real basic corrections for exposure. Now, this one is at f1.8, and then this one here was at f4, I believe. Yeah, f4, and then this one here was at f8. So, taking a look right here in the middle, it's not the sharpest in the world. But if we jump to the f4 version, you can see it gets quite a bit sharper straight away. And then if we go up to f8, it's even sharper. So immediately it's obvious that this lens is sharper at your higher apertures, which is typically something you would expect to see with cheaper lenses. Now, in the corners, it's the same story. Noticeably there, look at the contrast in the corner of that one compared to that one right there. Do we get the same at f1.8? Let's take a look. We do. So that's a little imperfection on the lens there. So this is f1.8. Then if we go to f4, and then if we go to f8, it's obvious that it's definitely better at f8. But if we look at just like a general self-portrait, this is at f1.8, I believe. Yeah, didn't grab my eye autofocus there. Didn't grab it there. It did grab it on this one. And it did grab it on this one as well. And at f1.8, that's ISO 640, 50mm f1.8, 1/2000th of a second. That's not bad. For a $370 lens, I mean, look at the background there. Corrections have been applied. It's not bad. Like, for a little portrait lens, my lovely adult rosacea there as well. But that's genuinely not bad. Like, I'm pretty impressed with that. In terms of how the bokeh looks in the background, I did a couple of examples. So, weird little expression on my face right there, but we're looking at the background. Look at this. It's all over the place. There's some odd shapes there. There's some more round stuff, and it's super swirly. Very interesting look. A couple more here for you to take a look at as well. Again, same thing. Odd shapes with the bokeh. A couple more with some colored in the background there as well, colored lights. So, it's got a strange look to it. Here's a brick wall. It's pretty sharp. That's at f2.5. Like, it's alright. This was at f1.8. Like, genuinely not bad. Nice separation in the background there. Colors are good. What about this one? One thing I will say is pretty bad on this, and you can even tell it on the edges right here and in the corners. The vignetting is pretty horrible. If we turn this off, look at the difference there. You see? So even with it applied, it's still pretty bad. Another example, that is with it on right now. That's with it off. Another one, with it on, with it off. So it's definitely obvious. Just a few photos here to cycle through for you. Like, it's all right for the cost. Genuinely not bad. In terms of fringing, I mean, you see, is that just my eyes, or is that, no, it's pink there. So you see, so there's definitely some color fringing around the edge of some of the brighter areas. Same thing here as well. Look, that jacket is actually blue. Like, there is no pink on that jacket, so it's kind of obvious right there that you are getting some color fringing, which is just where the lens isn't able to render all the colors individually. Here's an example to show you the bokeh when it comes to video. Something I did notice when I was doing this for the bokeh was the focus acceleration is actually handled really well. And then what that is typically when you turn a lens that is fly-by-wire, so it's all electronically controlled in there. When you turn it faster, it focuses faster. With this, it seems to be very consistent and handled well. So no matter how fast you turn it, it still doesn't focus faster. It's like consistent, which means you could probably pull focus on it manually a little bit easier than you typically can with most fly-by-wire lenses. It does look like as well from the autofocus that it's slower, but it's not as bad as it kind of seemed out in the field. I knew when I threw on a computer you get a better example of how it actually handles, and it's not the worst out there. It's definitely not the best. There were a couple of times where it looked like it had a hard time focusing as well, and even with some of the little self-portraits there, it didn't grab my eye all the time as well. And the A7S III normally in general doesn't have any issues with eye autofocus in video or in photo, so
probably some of the lens's imperfections coming into play there with the autofocus. Minimum focus distance is obviously a bit of an issue as well. It's harder to get things in focus when you're really close. You've got to be pretty far back. I'm used to this because I had the 55 f1.8 for the longest time, and that was very similar. It was a really long minimum focus distance, so something to be aware of if you are looking at picking up this lens. So in general, is this a good lens? Is it a lens I can recommend? Well, for this kind of price, it's pretty solid. You have some issues there. Minimum focus, autofocus is hit and miss now and then, but build quality is pretty good. It is a declicked aperture, so it's probably more suited for video than for photo, unless you don't mind having the declicked aperture there. It's not a loose aperture ring, so you're not really going to accidentally change things. And then you can also set it just to A as well there, and that's fairly firm to get it to that A, and then you can just control it directly on the camera, so not an issue there. Everything in this video kind of speaks for itself. I can't tell you whether this is a good buy or not for yourself. Only you're going to be able to figure that out. I'm just here to show you, so hopefully you're able to get that from this video and make a purchasing decision. If you are interested, I'll pop a link down below for you as always. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
It's really windy out today. I hope this works. This is the Sony... No, it's not, is it? This is the Viltrox 50mm F1.8 FE lens for Sony. It's so windy, the tripod just moved. You probably saw that.